Dear colleagues,
Hello.
hello.
Bon
On
dia.
behalf of UCLG, UN Habitat and UNDESA, I welcome you all to this third edition of the VLR-VSR Days. Before we go any further, I invite you to click on, we will have interpretation today, so I invite you to click on the link that will be shared through the chat or scan the QR code that you can see now on the screen. A new tab or window will open in your browser with Wordly. Choose your language and click Attend, and you will be able to read the transcript or listen to it, for which you need to click on the loudspeaker icon. This session is being recorded to help with our communication purposes. Estimados colegas, en nombre de CGLU, ONU Habitat, ONU DESA, les doy la bienvenida a la tercera edición de los días VLR-VSR. Antes que nada, les comento que tenemos interpretación. Les invito a clicar en el enlace que se comparte por el chat o escanear el código QR que ven en pantalla. Se les abrirá una nueva ventana o pestaña en su navegador o móvil con Wordly. Elijan su idioma, cliquen en asistir. Ahí podrán leer la transcripción o escucharla clicando el icono del altavoz. Esta sesión está siendo grabada con fines de comunicación posterior. Chers collègues, au nom de CGLU, ONU Habitat et UNDESA, je vous souhaite à tous et à toutes la bienvenue à la troisième édition des Journées VLR-VSR. Avant tout, nous avons un service d'interprétation. Veuillez cliquer sur le lien que nous avons partagé à travers le chat ou le code QR que vous voyez sur l'écran. Une nouvelle fenêtre ou onglet devrait apparaître sur votre navigateur ou téléphone. C'est Wordly. Choisissez votre langue, appuyez sur Rejoindre. Vous pouvez ainsi lire la transcription ou bien l'écouter à travers l'icône du haut-parleur. Cette session est enregistrée pour aider la communication postérieure. Well, having this said, I'm Ana Calvete Moreno, UCLG Research Officer, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies of this first session of the VLR-VSR Days. 2 exciting days are awaiting us. Just 1 second. Two exciting days are awaiting us, in which we will be able to discuss how to best harness the potential of VLRs and VSRs in this acceleration that is needed if we aim to achieve the goals by 2030, the 6 years that we have left. We will discuss about reporting and multi-level governance in this first session. At 4:30 Barcelona time, we will discover how local reporting can enhance trust in governments in these times of misinformation and uncertainty. We also invite you to join the conversation tomorrow, same time as today, to find ways together to improve urban basing services and contribute to a myriad SDGs through local reporting. And finally, a 4th session starting tomorrow at 4:30 will discuss how to make SDG localization more effective by fostering more evidence-based policy, planning, and financing through VLRs and VSRs. So we invite you to stay throughout these 4 thematic sessions, as we expect a lot of inspiring practices, a lot of food for thought from local governments themselves, but also national governments, international organizations, critical partners of these processes. So now, without further ado, I welcome these welcoming remarks by the 3 institutions organizing these VLR-VSR Days, starting with UCLG Secretary General Emilia Saez. Emilia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anna. Greetings to everyone, including those that are still in New York following the high-level political forum. It's such a pleasure to see Carol here and Shipra. I was saying to Shipra not so long ago, just a couple of days, that we were crazy to organize these days in such a marathonic week that we all experience. Shipra, we are very bold in doing this and asking this from our teams. At the same time, it is true that it's very exciting to to do these days online as part of the high-level political forum vibe. And over the past week, we have seen how localization has grown in scope, also in interest and in understanding. At the high-level political forum, we have seen well-visited sessions dedicated to localization. If I may say, I feel a very successful local and regional governments forum session on the 11th, but also local 2030 sessions with a lot of depth on the issues that we are going to be covering today. And also interesting labs around voluntary local reviews and voluntary subnational reviews. So our assessment as organization is certainly very, very positive of these past days. And in that line of thought and in this trend, I am very pleased to be here with you today, taking the opportunity to acknowledge what it means to be part of that localization movement, and also acknowledging the work that is behind the fact that the international community is starting to embrace localization in the way that we would have hoped it would have been done a while back. The international community is starting to embrace localization because a lot is being done, because there is a lot of action at local and regional level around localization that is not only translated in voluntary local reviews or voluntary subnational reviews, but is certainly part of that exercise. It has to do with that, and this is why this first session of the marathon, Strengthening Multi-Level Governance for SDG Localization, is extremely important, and is also the reason why we would like to highlight the importance of exercises around voluntary subnational reviews. A couple of data that I think were striking during the past week, and I am sure you will find interesting as well. Since 2018, a total of 295 voluntary local reviews have been presented, representing over the needs of over 500 million people. I think this is extremely important because it indicates, although you might think the numbers are not so big, the people that are being served around those numbers are extremely important. The local service provision articulated around those numbers are very relevant. And in the same trend, since 2020 and 24, LGAs from 38 countries have prepared 44 voluntary subnational reviews, covering a population of over 1.7 billion people, right? This is what we are talking about. This is the reach that we are talking about. We have seen in this exercise that over half of the countries that have produced the voluntary national reviews are involving local and regional governments in some way, but we have also seen that then the other half is not doing that. And what is more concerning for us in this growing trend, which is positive, is that very often the exercises at national level to involve local and regional governments stop once that the exercise for the voluntary national review is over. And our plea with UN Habitat, with UNDESA, with UCLG, the global task force members, CLGF, ICLEI, and others, is to say you need to take the voluntary local reviews and the voluntary subnational reviews not as mere monitoring mechanisms, but also policy transformation mechanism. I think the group that is here with us today is fully convinced of that, and we have seen that in the evolution of the many voluntary local reviews that have been repeated in time. And we have been able to hear in a very interesting lab that that was organized by DESA with our participation as well. We have been able to see how voluntary local reviews have not only shifted policy, but also the relationships between cities around localization. And this is what it is about. With a tool like Local 2030 now fully embedded in the system, with platforms that allow us to monitor how this movement is growing, with training materials and peer-to-peer learning that are powered, among others, by UCLG, but also very extensive experiences through organizations like CLGF and CMR, UCLG Africa. I think it is time now to consider these kinds of instruments as basic instruments for the implementation and the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, and they should be linked with a different type of investment. I will finish with this message because we want to hear from you. But from my perspective, we have evidence enough to justify a different kind of investment in localization. And I hope that Local 2030, that the SDG fund, and all these mechanisms that are in play can help us drive our efforts towards that. Thank you so much to the voluntary subnational reviews that will be presenting here this year. Back to you, Anna, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Emilia, for these welcoming words. It was indeed an intense and very interesting high-level political forum at New York, with very interesting outcomes for local and regional governments and the whole of the community. Let's move on now to Shipra Narangsuri. She's the Chief of the Urban Practices Branch from UN Habitat. Shipra, welcome.
Thanks, Anna. And it's interesting how we navigate the physical spaces, Emilia, together from room to room and seamlessly go into the online spaces from room to room, together pushing, advocating, raising the bar on the discussions on localization. I'm still here in New York, flying the flag. So, and happy to do so on behalf of all of us. Also great to see Carol. It was a great session on Friday. Carol, thank you very much for the lab, and a great opportunity for us to continue working together. For us, these VLR-VSR days are, it's now the third edition. And every year I realize that we are not just expanding, and the community, but we're also deepening the discussions. And that's, to me, the most important. Emilia, what you were saying, I think the community is growing, more and more VNRs acknowledging and integrating local governments, local data. But our job is far from done, both in terms of the scaling up of that effort, but also in terms of deepening of that effort. And this is where I'm very happy that the entire UN system, not just UN Habitat or UNDP or the regional commissions or DESA, a few converted players, but the entire UN system is stepping forward through the Local 2030 Coalition to embrace the power of localization. And one of the instruments in that is the joint SDG fund and the localization marker that we're together rolling out, to be able to say, look, any investments that are made towards achievement of the SDGs in countries, whether by the UN system or by donors or by multi-party trust funds, must have a strong localization dimension. And now we have a marker that can assess how strong or weak that dimension is, and that can add funding if you're keen to those investments. So it's really, some days it feels like small steps forward, some days it feels like huge leaps that we are making, but I think it's part of this story. VLRs and VSRs, since their very beginning, are, as Emilia said, demonstrating their usefulness as a monitoring instrument. But they are also demonstrating consistently their importance as a consultation, as a convening instrument, as a strategic thinking, a collective strategic visioning and thinking instrument, as a stakeholder participation instrument. And I think we need to take these further. We are looking at these processes not just as monitoring processes, but as Emilia said, transformative processes. They're about advocacy. They're about action. They're about making sure that the localization conversation and the SDG conversation is not just in the boardrooms and in the conference rooms, but goes into communities and goes into schools and goes into supermarkets and is embraced by everybody at the local level, at the same time embraced by everybody at the international level. The international progress on this is exemplified by the resolution that was adopted on SDG localization at the last UN Habitat Assembly, which specifically recognized the role of VLRs and VSRs in demonstrating progress and fostering exchange on SDG implementation. Then last year's SDG Summit was a great milestone where localization was identified as a key enabler for SDG transformation, with the Local 2030 Coalition selected as one of 12 high-impact initiatives. And by the way, today in the afternoon, there will be a session that reports on these 12 high-impact initiatives for those of you still in New York. VLRs, VSRs are essential instruments to accelerate and exemplify and translate these commitments into the ground. The topics we're discussing today and tomorrow are also very important. Multi-level governance is at the heart of it. Even today, I sometimes speak to national governments who are very persuaded, but who still come back to the question of, but does localization mean we hand over everything to local governments? And I'm like, no, this is about multi-level governance. This is about the spectrum of national to local, global to national to local, and back upwards. And I think it's very important. The trust question, the session on trust to me is absolutely fundamental. We are seeing a breakdown of trust. We're seeing an era of misinformation and disinformation the way we have never seen before. We're seeing a breakdown of trust in public institutions on part of the common citizens and communities. And this is it's really important to see how we can use data and indicators and voluntary local review processes and voluntary subnational review processes to rebuild that trust. Then basic services and evidence-based policy, link of evidence-based policy with financing. The financing piece is absolutely fundamental. We've been fighting this fight for a long time, Emilia and I, in all kinds of forums, but we have yet another opportunity to influence it through the upcoming FFD4 conference, where we're going to take the story of the importance of subnational financing and financing of catalytic initiatives at the local level, but long-term sustainable financing of local institutions to that stage. So we have, and all the discussions that you will have today, I hope will feed into those big platforms where we're going to take these conversations. So that's where we stand. Again, from UN Habitat, from Local 2030, a very big thanks. We are very grateful to have the opportunity to co-convene these days with UCLG and with DESA and with our partners in the regional commissions. And we will continue to fight the good fight alongside all of you. Thank you very much. Back to you, Anna.
Thank you, Shipra, for reminding us of these important topics such as financing, also these instruments that are being implemented to drive this transformation that you were mentioning, and also these milestones that allow us to share together and collectively find these ways of transformation. I would now like to move on, last but not least, with Carol Pollack. She's the UN Interregional Advisor on Implementation and Review of the SDGs in UNDESA. Carol, welcome.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you to Amelia and Shipra, and greetings to you all. On behalf of UNDESA, I'd like to start by recognizing our co-organizers for this event, UCLG and UN Habitat, and to thank you both for the longstanding partnership. We're very pleased to join with you here today for the opening of the third edition of the VLR-VSR Days. So one of the things I love about this event in particular is that it brings an opportunity for those who may not have been able to come to New York for the HLPF to still take part in the HLPF discussions. So those of you who perhaps were in New York last week will have heard repeatedly that according to the Secretary General's recently launched report, 2024 report on progress towards the SDGs, the world remains off track. Now with 17% of SDG targets on track to be achieved by their 2030 deadline. According to the report, extreme poverty has risen since in 2022 for the first time in decades. Progress in global health has slowed, and greenhouse concentrations hit record highs in 2022, with data in 2023 showing a continued rise. And as we know, that these challenges have all been further exacerbated by the ongoing multiple crises, COVID-19 pandemic and its lingering effects, the debt and cost of living crises, the planetary crises and conflicts. But they also reflect the inadequacies of pre-existing business as usual approaches to achieving sustainable development and insufficiently rapid transformation away from these. But as the Secretary General states in his report, despite these challenges, there remain glimmers of hope, he says. And certainly the growing efforts of local and regional governments to implement the SDGs, often in partnership with their national governments, are high among these. As the world is looking for solutions, recognition of the central role of local and regional governments in achieving the 2030 agenda continues to grow. We've seen this, for example, as Amelia has described, in the increasing space for local and regional governments at the HLPF over the course of recent years, with a truly unprecedented number of events taking place this year, including on the official program and special events, VNR Lab, side events, and other events. And to the question of ownership and Shipra's comments about, is this being given, questions from national governments about whether they're handing it to local governments, I thought it was very interesting that I think nearly 10 national governments chose to focus their side events on localization this year. So we've been inspired by the strong participation of local and regional governments and by the commitment and ambition and innovative approaches that you all are sharing with us, what you shared in New York last week, and we're looking forward to hearing more from those of you who are participating today and tomorrow. Certainly, the VLR and VSR movement has been a truly remarkable phenomenon. In just several short years, local governments from around the world have seized on local reporting as a critical tool to really grasp the SDGs, to bring them to local and community level, and to push forward for their implementation. So we all know that the VLR and VSR practices have brought many benefits. And for the past few years, UNDESA has been actively supporting local and regional governments to develop their VLRs and linkages to VNRs. A question that we have is that given the high level of interest demonstrated by national and local governments alike in the VLR and VSR processes, going forward, how can it is important to consider how the international community and national governments can scale up support for VLRs and VSR processes themselves, but also, of course, for the very important work and transitions that should follow once the voluntary reports have been prepared. And this year's edition of the VLR-VSR Days, we're going to focus especially on this second aspect. We look forward to hearing about your experiences in preparing voluntary reports, but especially about what comes next. How has the practice of reporting contributed in relation to the themes we're covering here, which Shipra has set out? And your insights will be important not only for this year's HLPF, but they can also serve to inform preparations for the Summit of the Future in September, as well as important events coming up in 2025, including the World Social Summit and the FFD4. So before closing, I just wish to share that DESA is pleased to have launched with partners a series of interagency policy briefs focused on various aspects of localization. We prepared this together with UN Habitat, UCLG, the regional commissions, and other partners, and they delve deeper into and offer policy recommendations on a pretty broad range of topics relating to localization, including data and e-governance and service delivery, climate action, and others. I am going to share the link to these in the chat, and I hope they'll be of use to you in your efforts to continue to advance SDG localization. I thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Indeed, there is hope and there are ways to accelerate action. And this is why conversations such as those of today and tomorrow are so important, so necessary. So let's move on now with the first block of this session on SDG reporting and multi-level governance. It aims to find ways to better align VNRs, VLRs, VSRs, so as to create a cohesive and comprehensive reporting framework on the SDGs. We will exchange on the challenges that the different levels of government face in coordinating these reviews, but also we will explore solutions that some institutions have found to improve this coordination, this dialogue, the data production and analysis, and overall policy coherence. So we have three panelists in this first block. The first one is Ana Maria Larrea. She is the Executive Director of the Consortium of Autonomous Provincial Governments of Ecuador, or CONGOPE. Welcome, Ana Maria. CONGOPE has produced 5 VSRs in 5 years, each with a different approach and goal according to the specific needs of the institution at each point in time concerning SDG localization. And also important is that this is the first year that the national government has allowed you to draft content from the VSR included in the VNR. And this has resulted in a 7-page chapter titled Territorialization of the SDGs in the VNR. It features the VSR, but also several VLRs and other bottom-up processes. So based on this, what can you tell us about this inspiring process? What would you say are the benefits of this increased recognition of local governments by the national authorities in Ecuador? Welcome, Ana María.
Muchas gracias, Ana. Qué gusto estar aquí con ustedes. Muchas gracias por la invitación. Un saludo a Emilia, a Carol, a Shipra y a todos quienes nos acompañan en la mañana de hoy. En efecto, es un gran logro para el país, como lo ha señalado Ana, el hecho que después de 5 años de estar luchando por esta articulación multinivel entre, me está pidiendo confirme el idioma, supongo que es para la traducción, espérenme un ratito.
Ya. Sí, gracias.
Perdón. Tras 5 años de realmente una lucha importante por lograr esta articulación de las políticas nacionales con las políticas subnacionales y poder hacer que se incluya la mirada de lo local en el informe nacional presentado, en el informe nacional voluntario presentado en este año por el Ecuador, logramos que al fin esto suceda en este año 2024 y que se incorpore el enorme trabajo que hemos desplegado desde los gobiernos subnacionales. En este caso, en el caso ecuatoriano, estamos hablando de los gobiernos provinciales, que tienen una característica especial porque son gobiernos intermedios. Hacen esta suerte de articulación entre las políticas nacionales y las políticas locales, las políticas municipales. los gobiernos provinciales en el Ecuador tienen en sus cámaras provinciales a todos los alcaldes de ese territorio. Entonces juegan a todos los alcaldes y también a los representantes del nivel más pequeñito de gobierno en el Ecuador, que son las juntas parroquiales. Entonces, el carácter de los gobiernos provinciales, en el caso ecuatoriano, es este rol de gobierno intermedio y también de bisagra entre lo nacional y lo local propiamente dicho. Entonces, el haber logrado que en este año, en el informe nacional voluntario del país, se recoja este trabajo de más de 5 años que lo hemos impulsado como Congope, para nosotros es una gran alegría. Creo que es un logro importante. Sin embargo, yo quisiera señalar algunas cosas. La primera es, si bien es importante que desde los países se vuelva la mirada a lo local, tenemos que superar esta visión de que solamente con lo local vamos a alcanzar los objetivos nacionales. La suma de todo lo local no hace lo nacional. En el caso ecuatoriano, en nuestra constitución, que es uno de los avances importantes que tuvimos en el año 2008, establece claramente competencias para cada nivel de gobierno. Entonces, si todos los gobiernos locales cumplimos al 100% los ODS, no vamos a asegurar que los ODS en el país se cumplan. ¿Por qué? Porque hay competencias que no están a cargo de los gobiernos locales y que pesan muchísimo en el cumplimiento de los ODS. ¿Cuáles son esas competencias? En el caso ecuatoriano, educación. Educación es una competencia del gobierno nacional y las metas de educación inciden profundamente en muchos de los objetivos de desarrollo sustentable, desde hambre cero, erradicación de la pobreza, no se diga el mismo objetivo de educación, el objetivo 5 de equidad de género, etcétera. Entonces, no descuidemos la mirada de lo nacional. También hay otra competencia en el caso ecuatoriano que es fundamental para el logro de los ODS y que tampoco está a cargo de los gobiernos subnacionales, que es la salud y que también incide muchísimo en el cumplimiento de las metas de los ODS. En este año tuvimos además la gran alegría de presentar 3 informes provinciales voluntarios. Nuestros prefectos estuvieron ahora en Nueva York presentando los resultados con unos logros muy, muy importantes. Tenemos 3 provincias que presentaron sus informes provinciales voluntarios. Son Manabí, que ya es la segunda ocasión que presenta su informe voluntario. Manabí además ha hecho un esfuerzo muy grande para que toda su planificación local esté realizada en función de los ODS. Entonces, no es solamente presentar el reporte, sino pensar la política, la generación de la política local desde los ODS. El 80%, el 79% de las acciones que Manabí impulsa aportan al cumplimiento de los ODS y esta es una cifra muy importante. Ahí también hay que rescatar el diseño de una metodología propia para poder llevar adelante y diseñar estos informes subnacionales voluntarios. Y el segundo caso es el caso de Imbabura, que también logra un cambio significativo en el aporte a los ODS cuando se pone a pensar en los ODS. Cuando hacen el primer ejercicio, resulta que apenas el 20% de las actividades que hacía la prefectura aportaban a los ODS. Cuando piensan desde la perspectiva de cómo generamos política pública desde la concepción de los ODS y implementan un programa importante para asegurar la equidad de género en la provincia, este porcentaje sube al 80%. Entonces pasan del 20 al 80% solamente con el cambio de mirada y con la generación de nueva política pública con ese cambio de mirada. Entonces aquí tenemos una lección importante. No se trata, ya lo decía Emilia en su intervención, no se trata solamente de hacer informes de los ODS. Se trata de pensar la política pública desde la perspectiva de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. Y finalmente tenemos el tercer caso, perfecto, ya estoy concluyendo, el caso de la provincia de Pichincha, que también hace innovaciones muy importantes en la metodología y logra establecer que el 80% de su accionar está vinculado al cumplimiento de los ODS. Entonces han sido logros importantes, 3 informes subnacionales voluntarios de las 23 provincias que el CONGOPE representa y la incorporación de la mirada local dentro del informe nacional. Una última idea tan solo para cerrar: sin política pública nacional que impulse la política local, no hay política de desarrollo local. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Ana María. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation, not only of CONGOPE's efforts, but also of 3 provinces. And yeah, it's very important to remind of the role of the intermediary levels of government in achieving the SDGs as well. So thanks for being here today. The second speaker is Mr. Mohamed Hanin. He's the Secretary General of the Association of Mauritanian Regions. UCLG has had the pleasure of supporting this year this association in the production of the country's first VSR. Mr. Hanin, local participation in the National Coordination Committee for the elaboration of the VNR has increased from only 1 local representative in 2019 to 2 municipal and 2 regional ones. You have also had bilateral meetings with the national government, and the result has been a strong VNR that includes summaries and recommendations of your VSR and 2 VLR. So I would ask you the same question as I did to the previous speaker, Ana María Larrea. So what have been the keys for this success, and how has this strengthened the coordination of the reviews and the coherence amongst the institutions' practices and policymaking? Mr. Hanin, you have 5 minutes. Monsieur Hanin? Je vois que vous êtes connecté, mais je ne vous entends pas.
Est-ce que vous me recevez?
Oui, merci.
Bonjour, très bien. Donc, vous me recevez en français et j'estime que la traduction sera faite à partir de cette langue. Donc, je suis ravi de vous revoir dans cette nouvelle rencontre à distance qui permet, en marge donc, des assises du Haut Forum politique donc, des Nations Unies, de faire un peu de bilan et d'échanger sur les questions fondamentales de la synergie entre les VSR, les VLR et les rapports volontaires nationaux. Donc là, je voudrais, après les salutations, vous dire toutes les salutations de l'Association mauritanienne des régions. Et naturellement, cette association a pris cette année donc l'engagement et la décision ferme d'engager, quelles que soient les conditions, donc un examen volontaire infranational sur la situation et la localisation des ODD dans les régions de Mauritanie. Ce pari, nous estimons qu'il est maintenant gagné parce que nous avons produit ce rapport. Une bonne partie en a été déjà intégrée au niveau du rapport volontaire national qui a été présenté il y a quelques jours à New York, mais également il vous a été transmis pour intégration au site de CGLLU. Le fondement principal de ce rapport, c'est de marquer d'abord l'engagement indéfectible de la Mauritanie et surtout de l'AMR, de l'Association des régions de Mauritanie, à s'engager dans l'aboutissement de l'agenda 2030. Donc, c'est un éclairage nouveau qui est extrêmement important, puisque c'est un éclairage qui fait le point de la situation de la mise en œuvre des ODD au niveau des régions. C'est la première fois que c'est fait et ça a porté quand même des éclairages et des informations hautement intéressantes qui permettent justement aux lecteurs de tous horizons qu'ils soient d'avoir une nette idée et la plus proche possible des populations. Puisque les cibles des ODD, ce sont avant tout les populations au niveau fondamentalement des gouvernements locaux et particulièrement au niveau des collectivités territoriales. Je crois que ce pari a été gagné dans la mesure où le rapport a fait tout l'éclairage nécessaire qui permet aujourd'hui à son lecteur d'avoir nettement ce qui se passe en termes de localisation des ODD au niveau des régions de Mauritanie. Mais l'autre volet qui vient d'être également souligné, c'est l'importance de la coordination et de la synergie qui a été établie entre l'examen national, l'examen volontaire national, donc le rapport national, et l'examen infranational. Donc nous avons échangé suffisamment à temps depuis l'élaboration de notre rapport VSR avec les entités concernées, notamment le ministère de l'économie et du développement durable, ce qui a permis donc de tisser des liens de partenariat et de coopération intéressants qui ont permis justement d'aboutir à la situation où nous sommes. Mais indépendamment de cela, et par justement le plaidoyer que l'association mauritanienne a maintenu, c'est que le rapport national de Mauritanie cette année a la particularité de présenter déjà un examen de 2 régions, prototype et exemple de 2 régions, la région de Nouakchott et la région de Hod-Chapi. Ça, c'est quelque chose de nouveau qui est extrêmement important, le fait que le rapport national volontaire déjà fasse la lumière et intègre des données spécifiques au niveau local, au niveau de ces 2 régions-là. Mais également, en matière de VLR, il faut noter également que la ville de Nouakchott a fait l'objet justement d'un rapport spécifique VLR qui permet également de faire le point précis sur la localisation des ODD par rapport à cette ville. Dans tout cela, ce que nous visons, c'est quoi? C'est d'abord de faire l'éclairage et de faire mieux connaître l'association des régions de Mauritanie. De faire connaître à tous ceux qui l'écoutent et à tous ceux qui le lisent à travers le rapport l'existence de cette région et son engagement indéfectible à tout mettre en œuvre, en rapport avec les autorités, mais en rapport également avec les autres acteurs multilatéraux de la scène locale, de manière à développer justement une approche pour mieux faire l'appropriation des ODD par rapport aux acteurs multilatéraux locaux et les acteurs locaux, justement pour leur faire mieux connaître les ODD et de ce fait, nous nous engageons dans une dynamique de plaidoyer. Plaidoyer pour mieux faire connaître les ODD, donc et pour créer cette compréhension indispensable à la mise en œuvre des ODD, mais également c'est pour sensibiliser davantage sur les besoins que les États renforcent davantage en moyens budgétaires comme c'est prévu d'ailleurs par la loi organisant les régions, qui prévoit que la contribution budgétaire pour le développement des régions soit au moins au niveau de 25% des apports budgétaires. Donc tout cela, c'est à travers également cela que nous tenons à sensibiliser aussi bien au niveau national, au niveau sous-régional qu'au niveau international pour créer justement cette prise de conscience et fournir et soutenir ce plaidoyer pour la mobilisation davantage de moyens techniques et financiers pour soutenir justement les régions de Mauritanie dans cette approche d'accompagnement et de prise en charge et de contribution effective et dynamique à la mise en œuvre des EDD. Voici les premières informations que j'ai voulu porter à votre information. Et naturellement, ce rapport, je crois qu'il sera le lancement d'une nouvelle dynamique qui sera continue. Et justement, nous estimons qu'avec les différents acteurs locaux, donc nous pourrons ensemble faire pousser davantage donc la mise en œuvre des ODD et accentuer et renforcer davantage la coopération et le partenariat entre les différents acteurs locaux. Donc, est-ce qu'il y a des questions particulières que vous voulez poser ou des éclairages particuliers? Je suis tout à fait disposé à me faire le plaisir de les apporter.
Merci bien, Monsieur Hanin. Excellente présentation. You raised a very important point, which is political leadership and commitment at all levels, which is critical for bringing the 2030 agenda forward. And this is a very wonderful experience of how local authorities, knocking on the national government's door with concrete projects, with concrete local reports in the form of VSRs, of VLRs, how they have fostered this improved coordination, which does not finish with the report itself, right? As you were saying, it is the start of an enhanced process towards 2030. So thank you very much, Monsieur Hanin, for your presentation. And now let's move on with the last speaker of this panel, Mr. Sanjit Singh. He's the member of the National Planning Commission of the Government of Nepal. So we move now to another world region. Mr. Singh, I believe you are with us. The Nepalese government, to which you belong, has taken a multi-level approach to the VNR production process, inviting the associations MUAN and NARMIN to be part of the VNR preparation task force. The VNR approach to SDG localization is comprehensive. It includes a 7-page subsection on SDG localization and acknowledges the critical role that local governments play in accelerating this transformation and achieving social justice. So my question would be, what brought you to make the report more shared and inclusive? And what do you think local governments have brought to this VNR and beyond? Thank you very much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you so much for having me here. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Yeah. So the preparation of the VNR has been a very participatory one in our context. So we believe that the local governments are the significant partners in implementing the SDGs. So that is why whenever we are producing any sort of national documents, we make sure that it is done in a participatory approach. So if you look at the institutional arrangement that we have in formulating the VNR, not only in formulating the VNR, but in carrying out the progress review of the SDG targets, we have a committee at the parliamentary level. So we have a parliamentary committee which is overseeing, all the sort of progress that is happening with regard to SDGs. And since the National Planning Commission is the focal body, which is keeping track of the SDGs. So we have the National Steering Committee, which is chaired by the Honorable Prime Minister. We have a National Steering Committee, and then we have the Monitoring Committee, which is chaired by the Vice Chairperson of the National Planning Commission. And then we have the thematic committees, which is led by the members of the National Planning Commission. So, so then these committees are, sort of coordinating with the sectoral ministries and agencies, as well as the provinces and the local level governments. So this is the mechanism by means of which the VNR preparation is done, and also the progress monitoring of the SDG goals are done. So, so while doing all these, updates, so to say, there is a huge level of consultation with not only the government level bodies, but also with the different stakeholders, including the private sectors, the CBOs, NGOs. And interestingly, when we prepared the VNR, there were many different, sort of stakeholders preparing their own VNR, but with the help of the National Planning Commission. For example, there was a group that were preparing the VNR, which was children-led. So in all of the 7 provinces, so in Nepal we have 7 provinces. So in all of the 7 provinces, the children were the ones that were, sort of conducting workshops and meetings and getting ideas and so on and so forth. So the findings of those VNRs were very interesting in that there was a lot of focus on poverty. The kids were playing a lot of emphasis on the poverty issues and the impact that it had on all the other aspects. So not only that, there were VNRs being prepared, which were women-led, youth-led, and so on and so forth. So these became a part of the national document because this was done in consultation with the NPC as well. So at the same time, in order to, so the National Planning Commission is in the phase of preparation of the 16th plan. Actually, the SDG goals has been, aligned already. Sustainability issues have been incorporated already from the 8th plan, but in the 16th plan, the main focus is expediting the sustainable development goals. So that has been the main aim. So this has been just recently prepared. So we are just done with the preparation of the 16th plan. And we made sure that all the plans and programs of the government are aligned with the 16th plan. And all the sectoral ministries are following the plans and programs of the government. And then, so when the sectoral ministries are formulating the plans and programs, we made sure that this is aligned with the SDG targets this time, because in the 16th plan already, we also had a lot of components, a lot of elements that has to do with the SDG, meeting the SDG targets. So there has been a sort of a mechanism by means of which at the present moment, we say that the 2030 level would be met only 60% if the rate, because we had 301 indicators, out of which 238 could be analyzed. And we found that 47 had negative progress, whereas 98 exceeded the targets of 2022, and 83 had positive progress. So based on that, 60% we said was achievable. But in line with the formulation of the 16th plan, if this is really well implemented, then maybe 80% could be achieved. But there is a huge funding gap. The financing gap is still there. We found that when we analyzed the costing required for the SDGs, 11% of investment required is still a gap over there. So 11% is still not met, whereas only certain part is met. So what is very important is that we have to make sure that the localization of the SDG targets are very well done, so as to ensure that it is sort of owned by the local government, because those are the organizations that are implementing it. Most of the time, it so happens that in some contexts people are not sensitized. So the preparation of the VLRs, the local reviews, have helped a lot in sensitizing the SDG goals in the local levels. So
Sorry,
people
30
are
seconds, please.
okay.
If you can
So people are. Yeah, sure. Thank you. So people are very well aligned, when they are preparing. So all the local level municipalities have been, to a certain extent, preparing their own VNRs, and because of that, the local level governments have been very well sensitized. So this has added value. So I would add just that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentations, for your insights, and for reminding us that it's not just multi-level governance that we are trying to improve and the local governments, put on the table to improve, but also multi-stakeholder approaches. And great to hear that the children, the youth are fostering this leadership in Nepal. Not just for the future, of course, they are doing it now for the whole of the community. And it is very important that this happens, and the local governments are there as well, because they are the main governments that target, that try to fight poverty and work with the community itself, thanks to the closeness that they have to the community. So thanks for the insight. So this has been an excellent panel, I think, where we have been able to learn from these inspiring practices from different world regions. And what is critical, we have seen that these practices can and should be replicated. Actually, at UCLG, on behalf of the Global Task Force, we analyze every year how each national government that is producing a VNR includes their local counterparts in this VNR production process. And we bring this information to the HLPF through the yearly Towards the Localization of the SDGs report. And this year, there was actually broad involvement of local governments. Out of 29 countries whose VNRs we've been able to analyze in depth, 59% have produced a VNR that includes a medium to high levels of LRG, local government involvement. This is great, because compared to the previous year, since 2016, it has grown by 20%. Before it was 40%, now it's 59%. But this also means that 1/3 of the countries this year still have not involved local government substantially or at all. And this needs to change. So while inclusive reporting at all levels is important, we have said this, it's not an end in itself. So in the next panel, we will explore how to go beyond reporting, beyond this HLPF, beyond these VNRs, VLRs, VSRs, to achieve something bigger and more structural. But for that, I have the pleasure to leave the floor to the next moderator, Ms. Lucy Slack, Secretary General of the Commonwealth Local Government Forum, or CLGF. Lucy, the floor is yours. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks very much, Anna, and thank you to the previous speakers, I think, for really setting the scene brilliantly in terms of the breadth of experience that we're now gathering around the role of VLRs and VSRs and how they feed into the VNR process. As Anna says, our session now is going to move a little bit beyond that, beyond reporting, into how we can really capitalize on strengthening the multi-governance relationships between all actors at the local, provincial, and national level, to further sort of strengthen a much more cooperative approach towards monitoring, but also shifting the dial on some of the policy making and some of the financing around how we accelerate progress towards achieving the SDGs. So we have a absolutely fantastic
group of speakers. We're running a little bit late, so I am going to ask our speakers to be super focused in their contribution. I'm not going to give a massively long introduction to everybody's background. I'm going to very much let you do that yourself. But we're going to start by going to Eduardo Tadeo, who is the Executive Director of the Association of Brazilian Municipalities, who's going to tell us a little bit, I hope, about the detailed consultation that they've been working on and the kind of way in which they're building a much more cooperative relationship with different levels of government. So I'm going to hand directly over to you, Eduardo, and give you 4 minutes, if you don't mind, to share your experience.
Bom dia a todos e a todas. Nós falamos aqui da Associação Brasileira de Municípios, que é a entidade municipalista mais antiga do Brasil e da América Latina, fundada em 1946. O Brasil é um país, tem que ter dimensão, com cerca de 210 milhões de habitantes, 5.570 municípios. Tem algum problema na tradução? Não. 5.570 municípios, a maioria pequenos municípios e alguns muito grandes, como São Paulo, com 12 milhões de habitantes. Então, é preciso conviver com todos esses municípios. Eu fui prefeito de uma cidade com 100 mil habitantes, que é uma cidade média aqui para o Brasil. É importante salientar que no governo anterior, de 2019 a 2022 no Brasil, houve um retrocesso muito grande na relação com os Objetivos do Desenvolvimento Sustentável. Houve o encerramento da Comissão Nacional dos ODS, o Brasil deixou de reportar às instâncias internacionais. A partir de 2023, com o governo do presidente Lula, nós voltamos a reportar e voltamos a constituir a Comissão Nacional dos ODS. Essa Comissão Nacional, ela tem um papel para nós muito importante, porque ela reúne elementos do governo nacional, a sociedade civil e tem uma representação dos municípios. Quem faz essa representação dos municípios é a ABM e a Frente Nacional de Prefeitos, que é uma outra entidade municipalista do Brasil. A Comissão Nacional acompanhou a redação do relatório voluntário dos entes subnacionais que a ABM ficou responsável e, ao mesmo tempo, foi o espaço de participação dos municípios na construção do relatório voluntário nacional. Então, nós consideramos que essa comissão tem um papel muito importante para fazer esse, que nós chamamos do Brasil, meio de campo. Além da redação, nós, da ABM, queremos fazer a apresentação desse relatório nessa Comissão Nacional dos ODS. E uma outra instância muito importante que nós construímos no Brasil a partir de 2023, por proposta da ABM, é o Conselho da Federação. Esse conselho tem um papel muito importante, porque o Brasil é uma federação tripartite, a União, os estados e os municípios. E os municípios no Brasil têm orçamento e um grau de autonomia bastante significativo. No Conselho da Federação, tem 6 representantes de municípios, 2 de cada uma das associações municipalistas do Brasil, 6 governadores e governadoras e 6 ministros e ministras do governo nacional. Então, nesse espaço é que há uma concertação através das câmaras técnicas, das quais a ABM participa. Nos meus 5 segundos, eu queria dizer o seguinte, para nós é muito importante que nós tenhamos construído, não sem intenção, o relatório subnacional, ouvindo muitas prefeituras, incidindo no relatório nacional e que vamos buscar agora que, através da apresentação nos fóruns do Conselho da Federação e da Comissão Nacional dos ODS, uma perspectiva de que esses relatórios tenham impacto e que a gente possa crescer a participação dos municípios na territorialização, na localização dos ODS. É muito importante o governo nacional brasileiro ter um olhar bastante aberto para os municípios, mas não sem tensão, porque, obviamente, o governo nacional muitas vezes acha que se resolve tudo pelo governo nacional. Muita gente no governo nacional tem alguma dificuldade em enxergar, mas os municípios, nós estamos pressionando muito para que isso seja feito. Obrigado.
Thank you so much for that. Very, very succinct. And I think really important to highlight how when we're talking about VLRs, VSRs, it's really important to contextualize that into the structures, the systems and the environment in which you're working, and seeing the difference in the shift between, you know, one government to another, and how we can really look at kind of institutionalizing some of this work to strengthen this localization process in a more consistent way going forward. That's really wonderful. I'm going to come next to our next speaker, who is Fuat Özkan, who is the Foreign Relations Manager and EU Project Office Coordinator from Karate Municipality, who's going to tell us a little bit, I think, about the way in which Karate Municipality has embraced the VLR process and how you're using your sister city relationship to further reinforce that, with a particular focus, I think, on implementation. So, Fuat, over to you.
Thanks a lot for the partner, be a partner on this stage, firstly. And then I want to say that there must be, at the national level, there must be coordination. And in Turkey, we did in 2020, 2 years ago, in July 2022, we established a National Sustainable Development Coordination Board with the Presidential Circular. And in this, under the chairmanship of the Strategy and Budget Director of Presidency, in order to monitor and coordinate the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals at the national level, there was a for example, it consists all the relevant deputy ministers of all ministries, for example, the heads of the Turkish Cooperation and Coordination Agency, and also the head of Turkish Human Rights and Equality Institution, and also Turkish Statistics Institute was consisting in this, how can I say, board. But I think that there must be also, how can we say, the Union of Municipalities of something like Turkey must be also representative of this institution also, because at the municipality level, there must be a representative in this board, for example, because you must have the representative of the 1,405 municipalities. There must be also representative in this board. At the district level, we made in 2021 published a VLR report, and before this we built up a city council. We built up city council, and also under the city council we have children environmental council also, and also women council, and also youth council. Under this city council, 3 main councils we established also to reach to the citizen, to get the participation of the students. It must so important. And also we have reached 3,000 volunteers, and then these are also in the different, how can I say, working groups. For example, Zero Waste, climate effect, and the other lots of sustainable energy groups, and lots of groups we have. And also we have directly representatives of all universities, all NGOs, and all other institutions are directly are here in the city council, and we are working with them. We have the how can I say, consultation of the academicians, and we are taking their master and doctorate students as a coordinator in these groups, and we are directly connection with the academia. And also we have the directly work with the also representatives of all how can I say district level ministry representatives also in the city council, and then we have lots of good relationship with them. And in this all our projects according to the sustainable development goals, we are directly working with them, academia, how can I say governmental side and citizens, all together, all stakeholders working together, and all the NGOs related with this, how can I say, projects. We are working all with them. And also we are getting the, how can we say, we are getting the good results after all this participatory local social development, how can we say, institutions in this, all this city council and the other types of institutions we have. I think that we all have in how can I say national level, local level, we must have all directly connection with all these projects also. For example, in central government, we have good relations because of this direct, how can I say, work with them. And then these are the results of the good projects, and to reach to SDGs, we can have lots of opportunities to in these projects to reach all our goals. There is a directly connection with the all levels must be how can we say interconnected, and connection must be established, and then they must go through these. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for that. I think that's really helpful, and I think really reinforces the importance of having those relationships at all different levels, and yes, how we rely on all those different levels to actually be committed to actually yes, collaborating in a meaningful way in terms of making multi-level governance a reality. Our next speaker is Manuchera Majanova, who is the head of the main department on investment policy and regional development in the Ministry of Economic Development and Trade in the Republic of Tajikistan. I'm going to ask them just to give us a little bit of context of their experience in engaging and involving local and regional governments in the production of their VLR. VNR, sorry. So I'm going to hand over to you, please, to just give us 4 minutes on your experience of engaging local and regional governments in the production of the VNR.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers on the first online session on VLR and VSR Days for invitation, for providing opportunity to participate, share views and experiences. In regard with your questions, I would like to note that the Republic of Tajikistan has established effectively functioning mechanisms to ensure continuous dialogue, public social dialogue that provides opportunity and platform for collaboration between various levels of government for VNR preparation. Actually, Tajikistan has presented its VNR 2 times. The first time it was in 2017, and the second time last year. And we, for VNR preparation, we have used the platform of the National Development Council under the President of the Republic of Tajikistan that is a public social dialogue platform involving stakeholders from the national, regional, local levels, as well as from all the economic and social sector of the country, and academia, private sector, civil society organization, mass media, and other stakeholders, development partners and other stakeholders. Under the National Development Council, we have actually our Ministry of Economic Development and Trade is a secretariat of the National Development Council under the President. And the Council has its 14 interagency task forces on each SDGs. Some SDGs are combined in a separate separate task forces, and so there is an opportunity to discuss, to discuss, to involve first of all relevant stakeholders on discussion, consideration and preparation and relevant issues and preparation of VNR, like in order to to comply with LNOB principle first of all, and to prepare inclusive VNR with comprehensive recommendations on SDG, accelerating SDG implementation. So last year, Tajikistan VNR was dedicated on the issue of green transformation for shared prosperity. And we have a separate chapter and on LNOB. And we could to involve LNOB, we have choose the groups who risked to leave most behind, and as the most vulnerable groups, we have choose HIV infected peoples, ex-prisoners, people with disabilities, elderly persons from the elderly persons from the nursery house of the country, people with stateless persons, and refugees, and most of all through the multi-level governance and involving all the relevant stakeholders, mostly civil society organization, we could conduct broad consultation with the stakeholders to raise, to discuss, to consider all the issues, relevant issues, and to develop a comprehensive recommendation on for the VNR. And these good practices was presented during the HLPF last year. So and it should be noted that except the National Development Council, we have also a public council under the on different levels, like public councils in regions, cities, districts that are headed by the chairman of these regions. And also in most ministries and departments of the countries, there are various sectoral public councils have been formed. And we also involve the members of these public social dialogue platforms for VNR preparation too. What else?
I think that's fine. I think you've done a really great job of kind of summarizing, you know, what you're doing. I think it's really interesting, and thank you for sharing the kind of way in which you've both been very open and very broad, but you've also really tried to focus in particular policy areas, like, for example, the energy transition agenda. I think that's been a really useful summary of some of the learning from your process, and I'm sure others may want to come in if we do have a little chance to open it up a little bit towards the end. But let me come to our final speaker in this section, and that's Florence Siewueu, who is the Executive Director of the SDGs Kenya Forum. which is a grouping that's been set up specifically, I understand, to support Kenya's counties in terms of accelerating progress towards the SDGs. So Florence, I'm going to hand over to you, and I think you're going to tell us a little bit more about your kind of whole of government and whole of society approach to the VNR process and where VLRs and VSRs fit in within that.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, and thank you to the organizers for this brilliant conversation. And so just to start off, because I know we don't have too much time, is to say that of course, Kenya has come in for the third time in 2024 for the third VNR. We did 2017, 2020, and this year 2024. And what is most important is what you said, the whole of government, all of society approach, where Kenya approaches it from a multi-stakeholder approach, bringing together not just the government and the subnational government as the lead government agencies, but also private sector, civil society, youth coalitions, and others that are willing or are well organized in terms of sustainable development goals implementation in the country. And so one of the good practices has always been to ensure that sectors like civil society have their own report. The subnational, the counties, we call them the counties, also conduct their voluntary local reviews. And so this year, for example, we have 17 counties, subnational governments that have come forth and reported, which is a very, very huge sort of increase. And it's good to see that county governments or the subnational government represent the level of government closest to the people, and they're better positioned in terms of addressing the needs of those who have been left behind, but also showcasing the true reflection of a country, and especially the global south in Africa. And so there's a lot that needs to be done if we are to achieve the SDGs by 2030. And so the Council of Governors who spearhead this work as the subnational are always working, of course, in partnership with the State Department that is in charge of the SDGs, that's the State Department of Planning, but also with civil society like the SDG Kenya Forum Coalition that supports all entities, but also is civil society led. And so some of the things that are emerging for this year, maybe I would quickly mention them, is for Kenya, we are starting to see 5 key issues that are emerging from these voluntary national reviews for 2024. And the first one is the issue of integrating the SDGs to the county planning frameworks or the subnational frameworks, how to ensure that the different counties, we have 47 counties in Kenya, that they can well mainstream the sustainable development goals into their county integrated development plans. And we have the 2023-2027 plans that are going on. These are based on the current leadership or the political leadership that is in power that came in 2023. And so these are issues of budgeting and ensuring that the annual development plans can speak to the issues that communities addressed. This process, building their capacity, but also providing the platform for counties to understand why this is important and how to link this to the voluntary local reviews and to be able to report. The second one is, of course, on SDG financing. Like many African countries and many global South countries, finance is a big issue, and we are also, of course, doing the domestic financing, but it's not enough. How do we ensure that the resources needed, be it private partnerships, be it issues of official development aid and many others, the conversion on financing is still a huge conversation, and many global South countries have been left behind because of not having enough resources to address issues of that are dear to them at county or at subnational level. The other issue is climate change, and this for us, for example, in Kenya, for the very first time, maybe in our generation, we saw huge floodings, a lot of drought that have changed livelihoods, impacted livelihoods and socioeconomical effects of communities. That means, of course, you're affecting how children go to school, you're affecting all the sustainable development goals implementation, but also how communities respond to some of this. And so the issue of climate change is a huge one for the very first time in Africa. We are continuously seeing the impacts and the issues of climate change. Another issue is on data and digitalization, how to ensure that, and I know somebody spoke about this, there's continuous need for us to invest more and more in data, disaggregated data that speaks to marginalized groups, disaggregated data that speaks to the interest groups that we have in the counties, but more importantly, how do we learn from other countries. I know that a lot of other countries maybe have better data and digitalization processes. How then can this be passed on to countries like Kenya and many others that may need some of this technology? And then the issue of leaving no one behind, of course, is a key and huge issue, because for us, we still have indigenous groups, we still have grassroots women, we still have persons with disability who are not many times counted, and many others. On issues of land, we have women who do not still access land, and many issues that are connected to the leave no one behind. So then how do we, as a global community, understand some of the challenges being faced in some of these countries, and how can we bring global solidarity to ensure that whatever that is working in other parts of the world could be replicated, but more importantly, we could showcase that we are working together for the Sustainable Development Goals. So I'll leave it at that, and thank you very much for this invitation.
Florence, thank you so much for covering so much in such a succinct contribution. And thank you to all of our speakers in this session for what I think has been, you know, a really useful, admittedly fairly quick, but a very useful sort of view into the different modalities, some of the common issues and challenges that we're facing, and also some of the different but shared ways in which we're approaching trying to sort of deepen the multi-level governance process, and using the VLRs and the VNR process as one of the tools to try to achieve that and go beyond the reporting. I'm going to try it as much as I can to do just a little kind of summary of these last two sessions, just to try to kind of pull out some of the key threads. And then I'm going to hand back to Anna, who I think is going to help wrap up. And anyway, I'm going to hand back to Anna after I've done that. Please bear with me. I'm not trying to kind of like cover everything that everybody has said. What I'm trying to do is pull out a few of the themes. So really, I've got, I think, about 5 or 6, which I just want to leave with everybody today. The first is around the importance of coordination in terms of making the linkage between the VLRs, VSRs, and the VNRs, and the importance of both informal structures to do that, but also the value and the importance of having structured systems, processes, dialogue frameworks in order to make sure that you know, the work that happens in the VLRs and the VSRs gets properly integrated into national VNRs, but also that we make the strong connection between national policy and local policy, and how national policy impacts on what local and regional governments are able to do at the local and the community level. I think that kind of engagement is really very critical. I think understanding, sort of building a little bit on that, a number of colleagues have really mentioned the importance of being really inclusive in our approach. And we've heard from many people around the table, the different groups and partners that are statutorily now becoming part of that kind of communication and consultation process, and ultimately, hopefully, also reporting process. I think appreciating the different contexts, and just in terms of the discussions that we've had today, there's been a huge breadth of different contexts, different local experiences, different cultural experiences. And I think we have to reflect that in how we create those structures and systems. And I think also really understanding the different roles and responsibilities of different actors in achieving and contributing to implementing the SDGs. I think political will, political commitment to actually putting meaning to multi-level governance is at the core of this, and that commitment at all levels is really critical. I think it was really interesting to hear, you know, the example from Brazil about the shift, and now that we're back to that kind of political will, and I think we all recognize the importance of that. And then I think a number of colleagues have mentioned the importance of gender equality in terms of actually looking at the way in which at the local level we can meet and achieve the SDGs. And I think that gender lens and gender aspect is really crucial. And that's not kind of going in place of some of the other stakeholder groups, like children, like the private sector, universities, that many colleagues around the table are already working with, and we really want to kind of continue to deepen that engagement. I think what this does show us is the ability of local and regional governments to really convene stakeholders. And I think in that multi-level governance, it's really important for all political actors to recognize the role that local and regional governments can make in that context. And then I think there's three things, and these were things which Florence, but also others just mentioned. I think recognizing the importance of continuing to build capacity to do this well is really crucial. And I think that needs to be a strong message coming from this dialogue. I think the growing impact of climate change and what that means in terms of multi-level governance going forward, and data, and of course data and digitalization and how we use those tools. But I would think that, having listened to everybody in these first two sessions, one of the threads which very much links almost everything that everybody has said is around the financing agenda and around the need to get the financing right in terms of making VLRs, VSRs, VNRs, and achieving the SDGs something which is possible in a realistic time frame. And I think when we talk about acceleration, when we talk about trying to target some of the major global debates and discussions, this issue around making sure that finances and resources are at the right level in terms of achieving the SDGs has to be a crucial recommendation from our discussions. Anna, over to you.
Thanks, Lucy. This has been a wonderful wrap up, let me say. Dear colleagues, speakers, participants, this was a great session. It's been a pleasure to accompany you through it. Very briefly, we will now have a small break and get back here at 4:30 Barcelona time in a bit less than 30 minutes. The upcoming session will explore the role of VLRs and VSRs in rebuilding trust in governments and institutions by enhancing transparency, accountability, and community engagement. So bear with us. See you all in a bit less than 30 minutes. And thanks for all the participants for joining us, and particularly to the speakers, moderator Lucy Slack, and for the welcoming remarks by the three organizing institutions. See you in a bit.
See you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you well.
Perfect. Hi, Claudia. Hello, everyone. So I think we are set to start this session. My name is Rafael Vignon. I come from UN Habitat. Very pleased to help moderate this session as part of the VLR-VSR Days at HLPF. This session today will focus on rebuilding trust in governments through the VLRs and VSR processes. Before we start, I would like to first with some housekeeping rules. The first one is that most of the session will be held in English, but there is translation available to English, French, Spanish, and Arabic. To access interpretation, the AI interpretation is available. For that, you can use your mobile device to scan the code, select your preferred language, click Attend, start reading the translated captions, or click the unmute phone button to listen to audio translations. Please keep your mics muted when you are not speaking. We welcome you to connect your cameras. It's always nicer, and leave your questions and comments on the chat. I think so, my colleagues online will help me flag any questions that could be addressed during the discussion. Yes, we will try to keep time for that to ensure we respond to all your different questions. This session is being recorded for your information. Okay, so thank you so much again to all the participants connecting. So as I mentioned earlier, the session today is about building trust, a very essential dimension of governance and sustainability. Particularly how the VSRs and VLRs, the voluntary subnational reviews and the voluntary local reviews, are becoming and demonstrating that they are critical processes to increase trust at different levels of governance and in communities and with communities. Indeed, in the current context and in the face of escalating global challenges, trust in government and public administration is eroding in many different ways. And this is characterized by a widening gap between government decisions, their effectiveness, particularly in addressing issues that are important for communities. This is really affecting what we call the social contract. The Secretary General of the United Nations in the report, Our Common Agenda, has rightfully highlighted this important societal phenomena and underscored the urgencies of addressing this, and for the United Nations and its partners to call for an extraordinary mobilization to rebuild trust and renew governance structures and means of increasing participation and understanding what matters to communities and people. This is absolutely essential to construct a world that really serves and reflects the needs of everyone. This is, as I mentioned, addressed by the multilateral system, particularly to empower local and regional governments and effective multi-level governance. Importantly, what we are promoting is to enhance overall national capacities to deliver sustainable development and protect communities, contributing to rebuilding the role and trust toward public administration at all levels. So that's where the importance of the VLRs and the VSRs come in. It's by emphasizing transparency, accountability, and inclusive participation that those processes can help bridge part of the gap between institutions and the public, and the citizens, to foster a renewed social contract. Therefore, the objective of our sessions today, and I want to thank our panel members, is to explore the role of the VLRs and VSRs in details building on experiences. How are those critical approaches rebuilding the trust in government and institutions and with the people and communities? We will highlight best practices and experiences from local and regional governments on inclusive decision-making at the local level, aligned with the SDGs. Participants will discuss with us how these processes can enhance transparency, accountability, and engagement, very importantly. So our agenda for this discussion is divided in two parts. In the first part, we will look at participatory processes to improve the social contract and rebuild trust. And in the second part, we will delve into the processes of VLRs and VSRs and see how particularly these approaches enhance transparency and accountability. So I would like to start with Dr. Leila Adel Youssef. Dr. Leila Adel Youssef is the director of the Directorate of the International Programs and Development at the Greater Irbid Municipality in Jordan. The city of Irbid is actually currently developing its first VLR. And following the example of Amman, the capital of Jordan, so Mrs. Youssef, can you please explain to us how the stakeholders involved in the VLR process are Irbid? What is the process to involve the different stakeholders? And can you please share with us, based on this experience, what are the advice that you can draw from this to conduct a participatory VLR? Over to you.
Good morning, I'm very happy to be with you today.
Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome.
I have a prepared presentation, if I can share with you. If you allow me to share it with you.
I believe so. Joanna, can you advise on sharing the presentation?
Hello, colleagues. One moment while we share the screen.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Is this your slide?
Yes, how I can move the slide, please?
So just a reminder that you have 5 minutes for the presentation, followed by a discussion.
Okay. So as a greater municipality, we face different challenges, economic, social, environmental, cultural, economical. For this, the municipality have adopted a new vision as a smart green city, attract investment and achieve happiness for people. With this vision, we have different values, social values like respect of order, citizenship, cooperation. We have institutional value, justice, partnership, responsibility. And the urban governance for greater urban municipality means that we take in consideration some point like a data source. So we have urban observatory, local economic environment. We have a small, medium. We enhance with the small and medium enterprise. Public participation, which is very important for us in the process of urban governance. governance. It's the city stakeholder. We established different city stakeholder group. We have started with the mapping the process, and we have at the end establish or elaborate and develop a stakeholder mapping guide for better urban governance. We take in consideration the private sector and access to basic services. We consider that rebuilding trust in government through the VLR, it's a key to strengthen urban city. So we consider this relation between citizen and government crucial to successfully address in collaboration and engage manner many of the issues that affect the everyday lives of citizens. Like corruption, government inefficiency, and the lack of services delivery. As a tool for rebuilding the trust in government through the VSR and VLR, we take in consideration the participative approach. Public participation in trust in government through the VSR and VLR may be needed for learning about people needs, attitude, aspiration, ability to pay, desired priority, possible cooperation, and help how they could be affected by growth or changing land use and activity pattern. Keeping people better informed and enhancing greater understanding about public action, bring transparency to decision making and thence reducing scope of corruption, empowering the poor and marginal group in the society, keeping people better informed and enhancing greater understanding about public action. How urban city is performing in rebuilding trust in government through VSR and VLR. We at Urban Mini City, we develop a decentralized, complementary and coordinated governance structure that enable efficient and effective planning for growth at the national, subnational government and regional and more important, the local level. We consider also the way how we monitoring and evaluate the rebuilding trust in government through the VSR and VLR very important, where monitoring is a continuous process to measure the progress of the government action. It's provide information, measures, and the progress or daily of the activity related to the target. Evaluation, on the other hand, is a systematic and objective examination concerning the relevant effectiveness, efficiency, and impact of the activity in the light of a specific objective. Information for systematic monitoring also provide critical put to the evaluation. As conclusion, at Greater Urban Municipality, we adopt a local approach in the implementation and monitoring of sustainable development goals with the participation of stakeholders, and this is based on data, indicator, and target. And today, the Greater Urban Municipality take into consideration the importance to adopt the global urban monitoring framework and the preparation of voluntary local review to achieve the new urban agenda. And thank you.
Thank you so much, and also thank you for making sure that you would remain within the time. It is quite impressive and obviously a very strong political will to really engage in this in-depth monitoring. Could you shed a little bit of light on the main takeaways, let's say the main highlights of the process itself when you have started the engagement with the communities? What was the main highlight? What was the most successful in terms of information collected and the process of engaging with them?
Sorry, if I have understand the process of related
the engagement with the communities, the engagement process itself with the citizens and the communities. You cannot, I'm sure, go into all the details on how this was done, but what was for you the main highlight? What did you learn that was really important through this process?
Well, through this process, we have understand that it is the only way that we can, when we engage people, citizen, we can understand the needs of the society. Without this, we cannot propose a project at the level of our city. We have this experience with the different district coming in our city. So we have started to elaborate a document that we call, if I make the translation in the good way, it's a document, the guideline needs for the different districts in our city. It's based on the participatory approach that we understand the needs of the local community in a different sector, like waste management, like energy, like water, like the need of park, etc. We have different category of needs. At the end, we summarize them in a different category of needs. We relate them to the different sustainable development goals. So it is a process to understand very well the needs. We use a map. We create a different group composed by women, men, children, not children, but youth, to understand Syrian refugees, and through this map we draw the different needs. We located them specially on the map. Because we consider that citizens understand really very well the physical area. And based in this, we translate them to concrete project at the level of neighborhood. Yes.
Now that's really interesting, and particularly the fact that you're highlighting the use of maps and to really anchor the communities into their neighborhood.
Yes. This map, we convert it to GIS tools. We elaborate more with the GIS tools to highlight thematic map, to produce thematic more, to elaborate it, to produce thematic map that can show the different category of the society needs.
Excellent, excellent. And to conclude, maybe when of those needs, what were the strongest?
The strong needs? Yes, sometimes people need the parks for the children, the women. They need, as we are working, I give you the last example of Hawara district. We are doing analysis for this district. They need parks, they need a health center. We talk about urban mobility. They need more bus, something like this. Waste management.
Transport.
Or point to collect, to put and to collect the waste in this district. It's like this.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Youssef, for sharing your experience, and congratulations again to the city of Irbid for all this work. I would like to give the floor to our second speaker, Mrs. Tanya Obradovic, whom I know. Tanya is a planning advisor at the Serbian Ministry of Construction, Transport and Infrastructure. Niche has been developing this year. It's a voluntary local review. And this has sparked the creation of a dedicated SDG monitoring unit in the local government to create sustainability for future reporting. So you're really embracing the monitoring approach. So please do share this experience with us today, particularly what does the creation of the monitoring unit means in terms of strengthening the building the trust for you and for your municipality, and how do you see this impact happening? Thank you.
Thank you, Rafael. Thank you for inviting me to speaking today. And yes, this year and last year was a very hard for us, but also a very we are very enthusiastic with that because we are involved in several projects. VLR is one of them. Also, right now we involved in quality of life initiative, and we are going a lot forward with that. But I will I prepare some presentation in general, if you don't mind, and after that I will maybe conclude with a niche example. But I will explain these slides. 3 slides will explain the path we are going through. First slide, please, Gaia. To build effective mechanism, there needs to be a system structure around 3 processes: planning, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation. Just as there is a formal planning processes and partial implementation of planning through various documents and building permits, it is also necessary to formalize monitoring and evaluation processes. That is our goal, you know, because VLR and VSR are documents that find their place within the monitoring and evaluation processes and can be part of the bottom-up planning processes. Currently, these monitoring and evaluation processes are outside the planning system and voluntary, meaning top-down planning still dominates. Situation here in Serbia is right in that fact. To ensure that the voice of every community is heard and, more importantly, implemented in the planning processes, it is essential to establish an interconnected system that operates continuously and hierarchically if we lack the appropriate indicators at the right time and hierarchical level during planning. Our goals may be inefficiently set, resulting in action and decisions based on incorrect premises. Because that planning have goals, monitoring and evaluation have indicators, and implementations have decisions. All of 3 of them must be parallel, must be together. Gaia, please, next slide. Because VLR and VSR can promote participatory processes by being continuously linked to hierarchical data source. Data concerning the local level should be processed at the level at that level. Similarly for regional and national levels. Another crucial aspect is the utilization of this data. If data is processed and presented as information in VLR, VSR, but its implementation is postponed to a later period, there is a risk of its becoming outdated due to the rapid pace of change. Consequently, the purpose of this participatory process and the potential of VLR and VSR as participation tools are lost. Therefore, it is essential that the data processing and the application of information occur within the same time frame. This means that planning, which is hierarchically organized in all countries formally, must be closely integrated with VLR, VSR horizontally, not running parallel to it. Gaia, next, please. And the last slide, but show a really essential point, as different levels of government are associated with various planning documents, laws, regulations, special planning documents, and all of that documents and law is all around the world in every country, and formally and regulatory and with institution, all of which are top-down planning documents dealing with future events and future special forms. It is necessary to hierarchically organize and incorporating bottom-up planning, which would involve greater inclusion of documents dealing with past events, such as VLR and VSR, as these documents can create context, not form. Lastly, and no less importantly, both types of documents need to be integrated into an unfilled system with real-time data. Reality consists of past and future actions. Every activity belongs to either the past, present, or future. VLR is most closely connected to the present, but without clear connection to past and future action, it cannot be effective in the present. That's my conclusion for that general stuff. And that's a really general point of our action in niche, but this is our essential path for our goals. You know, from this point, I put, for example, in our plan of development in niche, I put the sentence, we must put a monetary unit in, that is a really small step, but going forward with that. Please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Tanya. It's very impressive what you are implementing. I particularly like, I mean, there is no easy solution to complex problems. So you have very well mapped the multi-level integration of your approach. And that is really, I really commend that. There is two things that you have highlighted that I find particularly interesting, because here we are looking at building trust. And you have mentioned two things. You have mentioned the importance of building the future from the past, and that is the power of efficient monitoring mechanisms. And the second thing that you have highlighted is the possibility with this bottom-up, participatory, more integrated planning, if I understand correctly, to influence regulations for them to respond better to the reality of the needs and based on the experience. Do you want to say a little bit more on that?
Yes, because that missing point of bottom up is because in the past there is very not a huge a very fast time. Now there is a changes in daily life. You know, in the past there is changes over the thousands of years.
Things change very fast.
That is different. For example, here in Serbia, we have a planning system, and they think that everything put in planning, for example, color of the, that is a house, that is a, for example, greenery, and urbanists thinking, that is a reality. That is not reality. That must have a lot of things to be a reality, because everything changes, and we must connect both sides and going with planning in some another direction. You know, not a bottom up and I'm urbanist, I'm designing something, and that will be reality. That is not working anymore.
So what you're proposing is, by implementing this integrated multi-governance monitoring approach, is to have
Yes.
To have a more agile.
Yes, we will have a balance
of...
in planning when we have you have institution for planning. If we have the same way in the monitoring, we will have a balance, you know.
Yeah.
And we will have a balanced reality, you know. Now that is not a good situation, because that process is planning, implementation, and monitoring is the monitoring and the planning is like in the mirror, you know, must be in the mirror and equal. And implementation is like push in action of both of them.
So you're advising for a more innovative and efficient monitoring to have a more agile way of planning and regulating. It's very clear, Tanya. And I want to thank you for sharing this inspiring experience. I would like to move to our third speaker for this part of the session. His name is Mr. Matias Dalla Torre. He's the Director of Territorial Planning of the province of Mendoza in Argentina. Not only the country of Argentina has developed several VNRs and VSRs, but already since 2016, Argentinian cities worked on developing VLRs. Mr. Torre, how can VLRs and VSRs promote participatory process based on your experience, the experience of Argentina? I understand that maybe this presentation will be in Spanish, or Mr. Dalla Torre, over to you. Are you presenting in Spanish or in English, so that we can maybe give the time?
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. I have a presentation.
I think it's being shared. Yes.
Speak a little in English. It's okay?
It's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. It's very important for us to participate.
We don't hear you very well. Do you have a microphone, or just make sure to...
Yes.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Give me a second, please. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Just make sure to speak loud enough. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Then. It's very important for us to participate in this session. I'm going to talk about the adaptation of the Sustainable Development Goals in the territorial planning of Province de Mendoza, Argentina. In my role, as representative of the national government, I would like to report of the progress regarding the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals by Mendoza. The provincia of Mendoza is located in the central west of the Argentina Republic, with a population of 2 billion inhabitants. In Mendoza, the Sustainable Development Goals are connected to territorial planning. It is necessary to mention that Mendoza has developed a land planning which is the first in Argentina. This planning is a result of responsive public participation. It has a 30-year horizon and guided the action of territory with aim of achieving a better quality of citizens. Lights for its origin, the Sustainable Development Goals, the plan identified 7 main problems that the territory of Mendoza present. There are 7 problems in the territory. Each of these structural problems of the territory were converted in objectives to be researched through programs and projects. Each of these programs and projects were connected to the Sustainable Development Goal. The first problem, inertia in territorial management, that is connected to objective improvement in interinstitutional coordination, connected with the goals 2, 16 and 17. The second one, territorial imbalance, links to the objective to reduce territorial imbalance, connected with goal 2, 11, 1 and 10. The third problem, growing social inequality, is connected to reduce social inequalities, connected goal 10, 11 and 17. The territorial problem number 4, increased vulnerability to climate change, links to the objective preserve biodiversity, connected with goal 11, 13 and 15. The fight territorial problem, connectivity and accessibility problems, goes with the objective sustainable accessibility connected with goal 9 and 11. And the problem number 6, lack of productive integration, is connected with the objective economic development, connected with goals 2, 7, 8. Finally, the territorial problem number 7, water resource state, connected with the objective management of water resource, connected with goal 3 and 6. The other slide, please. Okay, thank you. To conclude, the last map shows with the adaptation of local government planning to sustainable development goal. It can be seen that the front of total 18 local government, only 4 have not adapted their planning to the sustainable development goals. Although this is positive, the challenge for the local government is to begin to present their voluntary reports with the coordination of the subnational government.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry. Yes, it is. It is. Thanks so much for sharing this experience. I would like to ask you of maybe to build on these problems that you have, these areas of problems that you have identified. If you could maybe choose one or several of them and explain how you have integrated the participation dimension to really respond as much as possible to the needs and the concern of the population.
Okay. Okay, I think that the participation of the community was very important for the beginning in this process, in Mendoza, because the citizen understood the importance of adopting the sustainable development goals. We believe that to have a plan linked to the ECDG show a positive signal from the government to the community. From the subnational government, we must support local governments. if necessary, to the local government continue with the reporting about the SDG.
Okay, thank you. So you are saying that it's the process itself and the consultation. You're highlighting the fact that this is building trust because it is not only because we are collecting what really matters to the populations, but we are demonstrating this openness to work with them. So I'd like to thank you for sharing this experience. Is there any? I don't see any question, so I'd like to hand over for the rest of this session to my colleague Claudia. Over to you, Claudia. Thank you so much for your contributions.
Gracias, Rafael. Thank you, Rafael, for sharing me the floor. And to the first block for these insights. It's great to hear different examples on the topic of participation, transparency, accountability in such disparate places, such as Jordan, Serbia, and also Argentina. For this second block of the panel, we are going to focus more on this component of the whole of society approach when it comes to voluntary local reviews and voluntary subnational reviews. And ideally, I would like to strengthen also and to hear about the experiences of the three following speakers when it comes to transparency and accountability. How the reporting exercise, the SDG reporting exercise, can embrace or improve the transparency of local and subnational governments with regards to their communities, and also make them accountable on the work that they are doing in terms of sustainability and concretely the SDGs. So in this second panel, we are going to hear the experiences from Costa Rica, then also from the Åland Islands, and finally we will close with the UN Association in Tanzania. And I will, dear panelists, first of all, welcome to the session. The three of you, I will introduce each of you when your turn comes. But before that, I wanted to ask you to please be conscious of time, even though now we're doing good with time. So let's try to continue in this path. I will ask you one question and give you some 5 minutes to respond. If there is time for another question, I will ask you. Otherwise, I think we can also keep some time for a potential Q&A at the end of the session, depending on the time. So without further ado, let me introduce Karen Porras Arguedas, and I'm going to shift now to Spanish. So please use the link in the chat if you want to get the translation into your respective languages. Karen, eres la directora de la Unión Nacional de Gobiernos Locales de Costa Rica. Gracias por unirse a este evento. Costa Rica es conocida como una de los champions, de los campeones de localización de ODS en la región. Este año publicáis el segundo informe subnacional voluntario. Felicidades por este gran cumplimiento. Y me gustaría, dentro de querer escuchar la experiencia general de Costa Rica en desarrollar el informe subnacional voluntario, me gustaría preguntarle si pudiera compartir cómo cree que estos informes, y en este caso el segundo, pueden mejorar la transparencia y la participación de Costa Rica por sus comunidades.
Buenos Buenos días acá, buenas tardes por algunos lugares del mundo. En realidad, muchas gracias por la participación en este evento. Nuestro segundo informe muestra de que los gobiernos locales, sobre todo en un país tan centralista como es Costa Rica, donde conformamos desde que se dio el impulso a los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, un consejo consultivo donde hemos estado el Poder Ejecutivo, el Poder Legislativo y la Unión de Gobiernos Locales como representante de las municipalidades de Costa Rica. Ahí tenemos también a la parte privada, al asociativismo también, y tenemos, es un espacio de articulación. Estos informes nacionales y locales, sin lugar a dudas, son una herramienta que contribuye a ganar confianza, dado su naturaleza como un mecanismo que garantiza el acceso a la información. Esto permite entablar relaciones básicas de transparencia y rendición de cuentas sobre aquellas acciones dirigidas a mejorar la calidad de vida de los municipios desde el enfoque de desarrollo sostenible. Y es que cada informe voluntario que hemos presentado, cada día mostramos más el avance que tienen los gobiernos locales y el compromiso. Nosotros en Costa Rica firmamos un pacto de compromiso desde lo local con lo nacional. Hemos logrado con el PNUD que 40 gobiernos locales presenten informes y que incluyan dentro de su planificación las herramientas para implementar a los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. También conformamos una red de cantones amigos con los de los ODS. Esa red está funcionando y está articulada por el Instituto de Fomento y Asesoría Municipal, y el PNUD está contribuyendo. Tenemos un informe de cada una de estas 40 municipalidades y propiamente la confianza se construye a partir de los resultados visibles y tangibles que mejoran la calidad de vida de las personas. Y qué mejor que los gobiernos locales que conocen cuáles son las necesidades que tienen los vecinos de sus territorios. Propiamente desde la Unión Nacional de Gobiernos Locales hemos impulsado el trabajo conjunto. Tenemos proyectos con 15 municipalidades de movilidad que además están alineados con los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, el 9, el 11, el 13, el 17 y el 5. Y toda esta articulación de los gobiernos locales nos permite no solamente contribuir con desarrollo próspero en las comunidades sin dejar a nadie atrás, sino también mostrar el alineamiento que se puede tener con todos estos ODS que les mencioné. Desde una perspectiva prospectiva siempre podemos estar mejor, y esto aplica también para los informes locales y subnacionales. La confianza en los gobiernos locales puede y debe mejorarse destacando la cercanía y la participación activa de la ciudadanía en Costa Rica. Los gobiernos locales han demostrado ser actores estratégicos y lo demostramos durante la pandemia. A pesar de que tenemos un país tan centralista que no tiene además gobierno intermedio, logramos que las políticas públicas en temas de salud bajaran hasta los gobiernos locales, sirviendo nosotros desde el asociativismo como una vocería y como un ente articulador con los gobiernos locales. Nosotros fomentar estos espacios de participación ciudadana en la implementación de los ODS refuerza la confianza para hacer sentir a los ciudadanos que sus voces son escuchadas y que las preocupaciones son atendidas. Es por eso que se requiere un enfoque integral que combine la proximidad de la participación ciudadana con la transparencia y la rendición de cuentas y la colaboración intermunicipal, como lo somos las organizaciones del régimen municipal. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Karen, por compartir la experiencia de Costa Rica con todos nosotros y nosotras. Recalcar algunos de los puntos que has mencionado que me parecen bastante relevantes. El primero es este pacto de compromiso que el país ha firmado desde lo local hasta lo nacional. Creo que aquí es muy importante mencionar como el principio de gobernanza multinivel, que también se ha mencionado en la sesión anterior, se ve, o una de las primeras acciones que se puede hacer en este sentido es el compromiso político y el reconocimiento a nivel nacional también del gran rol que tienen tanto gobiernos subnacionales como locales y municipalidades. También ha mencionado la red de cantones de los ODS, una iniciativa que también desde ONU Habitat hemos dado seguimiento por su gran valor añadido. No se ven muchos sitios en los que hayan tantas municipalidades interesadas y reconociéndose como amigas de los ODS. Entonces, también hay que reconocer el gran trabajo que se está haciendo desde en este sentido. Y quería hacer una segunda pregunta sobre ha mencionado la participación ciudadana y cómo se puede fomentar. Me gustaría preguntarle si en el proceso el informe subnacional, si ha habido algún proceso de participación ciudadana que le gustaría que pudiera comentar. Gracias.
La relación que tienen los gobiernos locales es cotidiana con la participación de la ciudadanía. Los proyectos que impulsamos desde los gobiernos locales tienen roles importantes, no solamente en la participación. Nosotros ahora estamos impulsando mucho el enfoque de que cada vez que un gobierno local va a desarrollar un territorio o a hacer una obra en un territorio, tenga el concepto de que la ciudadanía pueda aportar sus ideas para la construcción, para que puedan no solamente implementar, sino que también en el momento en que es apropiación, que las personas se puedan apropiar de las obras que la municipalidad está ejecutando, pero también en la planificación del territorio. Nosotros en Costa Rica tenemos una planificación estratégica en los gobiernos locales a 10 años, y cada año tiene que una planificación más a corto plazo a cada año. Y esa planificación tiene que ser participativa por la ley que así lo establece. Así que, sin lugar a duda, hemos logrado que la participación activa de los ciudadanos se pueda ver reflejada en las acciones de los gobiernos locales.
Muchísimas gracias por aportar esta información. Y lo comentaba Tania de Serbia en el panel anterior, cómo la planificación y el monitoreo van de la mano, y como también estas experiencias de participación dentro de un ejercicio de monitoreo al final también informa las futuras planificaciones. Muchísimas gracias, Karen, por compartir esta experiencia. Now I'm changing back to English and move to the second speaker. From Costa Rica, we travel north in the globe, and we go to the autonomous territory of Åland Islands. which has a long-standing experience in promoting territorial sustainability. This year, Åland Island has published its first voluntary SDG report under the theme Everyone Can Flourish. Mikael Larsson is here with us today. He's the Principal Secretary for the Development and Sustainability Council. Dear Mikael, based on your experience, what lessons can you take and can you share with us from the voluntary local review process that can improve the accountability of local governments with regards to the SDGs? The floor is yours, Mikael.
Thank you very much, Claudia, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me well.
We can hear you well, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to this VLR Days, the third edition, and hello everyone around the world. And could you please share the next slide, Gaia? Thank you. Åland, I would say, is a vibrant island society, an autonomous region with its own parliament, legislation, and flag. We are located in the heart of the Baltic Sea between Finland and Sweden in Northern Europe, and our archipelago has a unique cultural and geographical identity. And upon first glance, the prevailing conditions on Åland Islands appears favorable in many respects, with an average life expectancy of 83.5 years and remarkably high levels of trust between people. There is also a widespread recognition that humans are part of nature, with 90% believing it is our responsibility to protect biodiversity. However, a deeper scrutiny uncovers shortcomings and deficiencies. For example, violence, especially in close relationships, remains prevalent. Eutrophication threatens our waters, while our per capita greenhouse gas emissions unfortunately remain high. In addition, our consumption patterns contribute to significant negative spillover effects beyond and well beyond Åland's borders. And we present this in detail in our first the Åland Voluntary Review 2024, entitled Everyone Can Flourish on the Islands of Peace. And as Claudia already mentioned, this is our first voluntary review within the framework of the 2030 Agenda. However, our report is based on experiences from 8 years of implementation efforts. Next slide, please. Because it all started in 2016 with a grassroots movement to create a sustainable future. As a result, a vision and 7 strategic development goals for 2030 were drawn up by the people who live and work here on the Åland Islands, and it was later adopted some months later by the Parliament of Åland. And I argue very strongly that a grassroots movement organized in a freely formed network in close cooperation with the government is the single most effective mechanism to hold governments accountable to commitments made in VLRs and VSRs, and maybe also in VNRs. Nevertheless, we have put in place a number of institutional mechanisms to support leadership, coordination, and policy coherence, and I would like to mention 3 of them here. First, the High-Level Development and Sustainability Council and its Secretariat. And this council was established in 2016 to oversee implementation, consisting of not only politicians, but also representatives of civil society, business, farmers, education, and so on. Second, regular progress reports are issued to ensure alignment with the vision and strategic development goals. And we will actually publish our 6th edition of our local regular progress reports later this year. And thirdly, the Åland Parliament hosts a forum for the leaders of each party group in the Parliament, with the aim of supporting the Parliament in taking long-term political responsibility for the implementation of the Åland vision and strategic development goals. Next slide, please. And finally, the Åland Voluntary Review 2024 offers a very brief, but still introduction to the Everyone Can Flourish idea. Everyone Can Flourish embodies an ethos of ethical living in everyday life. It also represents an aspirational common future worth striving for. I would say it is a flourishing age in which no one is left behind and humanity has achieved peace within ourselves, with each other, and with the rest of nature. And in this era, consensus, courageous dialogue, generosity, and economic equality prevail, supplanting division and polarization. And we live in a world free of fossil fuels, weapons, and abuse. And if this utopia appeals to you, I encourage you to read the chapter 4 of our voluntary review. And I end by saying that we on the Åland Islands, we stand ready to collaborate with all of you and those who share our vision to advance humanity. And maybe I could also make a note that you see our 7 strategic development goals in short on this slide. And in this forum, maybe I should put a special emphasis on the second one, the number 2, trust and participation. Since 2016, we actually have a goal. One of our 7 strategic development goals for 2030 is to have a 100% trust level in our society, which means that everyone in our society should report that they trust also people that they don't know. That's something that we monitor for since 2017 or 2018, I think. So I stop there and leave the floor back to you, Claudia. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing this quite an important experience on how trust and transparency and accountability is embraced in practical terms. I think that you have shared with us some quite practical insights on how you are actually putting into practice some of the ideas that we are mentioning in this session, and that is quite appreciated. I hope that this is food for thought for other places in the world and for other territories that are here represented with us today. I want to emphasize this point on how the movement started, that it was actually a grassroots demand, and it was the government listening to the grassroots organizations, to the communities. And I think this is actually bringing the localization a step forward and having this type of highly localized initiatives in which you bring the global commitments first to the local level, but then also to the more grassroots level. So thank you for sharing that. It's actually very, very inspiring. And I wanted to ask you about, because we had in the slide before the different areas of the voluntary local review, the principles. And I wanted to ask you about the one on trust. I saw that there was point 2 or 3. I don't recall. It's on trust, and I just wanted to ask you if you could share any insight or any finding that you have put forward on your report on this point.
When it comes specifically to trust, well, one learning that we did quite early on is that trust is actually, you build trust top trust is mostly built from top down. So it's very much a leadership issue, that the leaders of your society needs to act in a way that people feel is authentic, feel that is for real and not just words. So that's something that we work with. We are not perfect. We are not sustainable at all, and we have so much work to do. But we at least try to use that finding to help the leaders of our society to be reminded of that, and also maybe give them some tools and hopefully, but of course then it is linked to the grassroots as well, because the grassroots, they are the voters, in a democracy. So thanks to the democracy, hopefully the grassroots movement will eventually also vote in the leaders and the politicians that's actually understanding the importance of being a trustworthy leader.
Thank you, Mike, and once again, congratulations to all in Ireland for the work that you're doing and for sharing it with all of us.
Thank you very much.
Once again, I encourage everyone to also share their comments and any question on the chat, and we will address them at the end of the session. Now let me introduce our third and last speaker. Judith Urio is the coordinator of Tanzania Sustainable Development Platform as part of the United Nations Association of Tanzania. The United Nations Association of Tanzania has been working since the endorsement of the agenda to engage all citizens to work towards the SDGs. And one example of this is the process that the association is leading in bringing the voices from civil society to the Tanzanian Voluntary National Review. And another example is the support that it provided in facilitating community hearings in the first voluntary local review of Tanzania that was published last year in Mwanza. So, Judith, it is great to have you with us today. And I wanted to ask you if you could share, based on your experience and in your opinion, what do you think that VLRs, or let's say, which potential do you think that VLRs and also VSRs have to increase community participation? Thank you, Judith, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Good day, everyone. From what we have been experiencing in practicing from 2015 up to now, there is so much potential for inclusivity when conducting these kind of processes. And we all understand that we cannot say there is an actual impact of SDGs if they're not felt locally. That is why it is really, really important to make sure that the local community understand what we mean when we talk of SDGs and how much are they contributing. So the very first thing I would say, it's inclusive participation. Like when we conducted the VLRs in 2023, which also informed the national, the VNRR, we're also reporting on that year, we made sure we are conducting these community hearings. We want to hear the youth at the community level. What are their challenges? What are their priorities and recommendations? We wanted to hear the children. We wanted to hear women as well, because we cannot make national plans. We cannot report on the progress of SDGs if at all the local community does not really understand how is it impacting them and how are they actually part of it, how are they actually contributing to it. And also these VLRs and VSRs and VNRs, this kind of information needs to be translated in a very simpler information, because maybe yes, CSOs and people at maybe national level, they understand when we talk of VNRs or maybe voluntary local review. But this just a mere woman who wakes up in the morning and goes to the market to sell tomatoes, does she really understand what we're talking about when we talk of SDGs? So we need to simplify this kind of information to the simplest form that even the very local citizen can actually understand when we talk of this kind of processes. We can actually understand when we talk of these global agendas. But again, we need to emphasize on partnership with local communities. I mean, the community-based organizations who are actually working directly with the community, because for them, they actually understand what is happening at a grassroots level, what needs are there, what challenges are there, and these people, what do they actually need to be able to progress in their day-to-day activities. And that is how we can actually inform the LGA's day-to-day implementation and inform their regional administration levels. And that is how we can inform national to regional and global level, because just informing this upper level of national surface and not actually basing the grassroots level, are we really not leaving anybody behind, as the principle of SDGs is emphasizing? So it is really important to make these processes or these processes very participatory by informing the needs of the local community and understanding what actually are their recommendations, what actually are their priorities, so that we can actually measure how far have we made a step in implementation of SDGs as a country or as a region or global wise, because this impact of SDGs has to be felt from very local level or regional level. But again, I think there is a very important need of integration of SDGs into existing local strategic plans, because yes, the local strategic plans are there, but how much do we understand, how much do they inform the SDGs? If we are to say we have made a progress on goal number 4, quality education, the local administrator has to understand the school that is built at the local level is one of the things that is going to inform this national progress just in general. So there is a need to be able to promote good monitoring and evaluation of implementation of SDGs. These SDGs has to be integrated into their plans directly, so that whatever they do into their day-to-day responsibilities and activities actually inform the implementation of sustainable development goals just in general. And again, this VLR has to be more participatory. They need to be conducted regularly, because there are other for example, the VLRs in Tanzania, they've only been conducted in Mwanza, and we have a lot of cities in Tanzania, but only in Mwanza we were able to conduct the voluntary local review. So we need to conduct this kind of processes in most cities, so that when we decide to report on the progress of the SDGs as a country, then we do have proper data that we got from cities and from the local level, and it is informing the actual implementation of SDGs generally, and what step as country has made into the implementation of SDGs. Yeah.
Thank you, Judith, for sharing the experience of Tanzania and in the UN Association. I think it's once again your experience and the work that you're doing. It's critical for one of the most essential components of the agenda, which is the understanding by communities, by different stakeholders. I think, and this has been said in several occasions in different, let's say, SDG forums, events, that the agenda will not be accomplished and the targets will not be achieved until there is a full understanding by communities, by local stakeholders, on what this agenda actually means, and what to and also like how the targets relate with the mission and the work that the local governments are doing. So these processes and efforts in bringing the global goals, global targets into tangible work, into tangible experiences at the local level, it's critical, and it's very important that it's embraced, and that there is funding also and allocated for that. And particularly taking this component on the awareness raising on the SDGs, I wanted to ask you if you could share with us any good practice on how the UN Association of Tanzania has helped in raising the awareness of the SDGs with local communities. Just a concrete 1 or 2 examples on how you're doing this.
Okay, that's a very good question. One of the ways that we use to make sure that these SDGs are understandably at a very local level, for example, we do have the Maasai community in Tanzania. They speak mostly not Kiswahili, not English, but Maasai. And we needed them to understand what we mean when we talk of SDGs. So what we did is translate all the 17 SDGs with indicators to Maasai in Maasai language. And when we went to talk to them, we are talking to them in their language that they are using every day. That is how we may able to communicate together, and actually we can come to a mutual understanding of what we mean when we talk of SDGs just generally. And other local communities like the youth or the women at very local level, we use we use the simplest language that we have to be able to communicate with just a mere woman who is in market selling tomatoes, a child who is also in school. We just translate the SDGs in a simpler way, the simplest form that they may understand according to their needs. So these are the ways that we try to translate the sustainable development goals into the simplest form, and that the community niche can be able to actually grasp the idea of what we mean when we talk of the global agenda, and what we mean when we talk of we want to eradicate poverty by the end of 2030 and like have quality education. We just translate it in a way that they are used to it in their day-to-day activities, in their normal language that they use every day. We do not go there with these very hard terminologies and global languages that we use in these kind of spaces, but rather we just simplify the information as simplest as possible to make them understand on what we mean when we talk of SDGs. And we do this in different kind of groups. When we talk with women, we normally know how to talk to them in a way they can understand us. When we talk of the young generation, the youth, we also make it in a way that resonates with them, we resonate to their activities. When we talk with children at school, we do integrate with whatever that they're going through as children. So maybe we're going to talk about climate change with students at school. We will not tell them like, climate change it is this big thing, 1, 2, 3, but rather just ask them if they're feeling hot, if they're in class, and they can resonate with what you were actually trying to say. So I think this has been the best approach to be able to make the community actually understand what we mean when we talk of this global agenda. And yes, they don't see it as a big giant and it does not concern them, but rather it's something they actually are doing, and they're actually part of it and contributing to it in their day-to-day activities. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And indeed, I think you have mentioned it loud and clear. The SDGs, the global agendas are not something different from the concerns that communities have, and are not also anything different from what already governments are doing in promoting resilient, inclusive, and sustainable cities, towns, or villages. So it's really, really important that the global goals are once again translated of course, in the most figurative way, as you have mentioned, like the Maasai case, but also translated really to make it resonative to communities. So thanks for this experience. And I would say that it's difficult to find cases where you see the component on multi-level and multi-stakeholder working together. There are many places that do great in coordinating vertically from the national, regional, local, but maybe they lack the multi-stakeholder component, while in other places we see that they have great engagement at the local level with communities, but the component on multi-level governance it's missing or could be improved. I think that with in between the case of Costa Rica, of Olan Islands, and Tanzania, we have seen how these two approaches can be integrated. Given that, first of all, you have done great with the time. Thank you for making my job so easy. I wanted to check if there is any question for the three speakers from the audience. You can raise your hand or once again share your question on the chat. And I don't see any hands, so I will ask you a very quick follow-up question to the three of you. I'm not sure if Karen is still with us, but the question that I wanted to ask you is that after working on a report, that has so much information about different topics and as diverse as the SDGs are, a report in which you go from education to public health to global partnerships, how can these findings be communicated with communities? how do you think this can be once again translated to the concerns and to the daily life interests of communities? Maybe Mika, you can start.
Okay, thank you. A very good question without a very good answer, most probably, because we decided that this report has to be allowed to be as complex and as it is, because it's so broad and the challenges are very complex. So we decided that this report itself, we need to allow it to be written in a way that's not easy accessible. But having said that, we work with our local reports and local groups where we translate what we have in the report and in our reports in a way that's hopefully much easier to understand. And for example, we are our main agenda from 2016. We have written that in an easy to read version, which is licensed to be easy to read. So we have those kind of components in it. But maybe what I'm trying to say here is that we also need to recognize that we need to allow ourselves also to be complex and not just try to be easy to understand. That we need to do both at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, I think it takes a lot of experience and thinking to communicate something that is at the same time complex but easy to understand and to digest and also to engage. So thank you, Mika, once again for sharing this good reply to the question. Judith, would you like to share any insight on this part?
For that context, I think we can also translate this report to the community in accordance to their needs and the target group. When we talk in the community, there are young women, there's youth, there is entrepreneurs different levels. So I think there is this, we take a leverage on the village meetings that they normally have and where they normally discuss their agendas and find a way to integrate to communicate the findings of this report into those kind of meetings that is easier for them to digest. We can make use of these spaces, like if we can find the youth at maybe social media campaigns, there is where you can try to tell them of what the findings are and what the crucial information that is found from the report. We can also leverage to capacitate these leaders from community level, because these people are the ones who are able to communicate with their community directly, with their people, and they actually understand the best language to speak to them on how to understand this kind of matter. So maybe you can capacitate them on how we need this kind of information to be shared and how to be shared. For them, it will be easier to translate it to their people and to actually communicate the right information, because they actually know in what kind of way they should talk to the people to actually grasp the idea of what we want to deliver. So the easiest way or the easiest approach is just leveraging the authorities at a community level. And if we are going to face the groups, then we just find the better language for the actual group that we're trying to deliver the message to. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Judith, for this reply. And indeed, the need to use also different channels of communication based on the group that is targeted. That's quite relevant. So with this being said and reply, I think that we are coming to the end of the session, and also coming to the end of the first day of the third edition of the Voluntary Local Review, Voluntary Subnational Review Days, VLR-VSR Days. I want to quickly try to wrap up this second session in which we are talking about the topic of trust in governments and how the SDG reports, VLRs and VSRs can rebuild this trust in governments. And I wanted to bring back the point that Rafael was mentioning in the previous panel on how our common agenda, this report that the Secretary General launched, was calling already for the mobilization of all the stakeholders of all levels of government to rebuild trust and also to renew governance structures. And in this attempt to rebuild trust and renew governance structures, I think that the point on renewing the multilateral system is quite important. I think that here is important to mention that a renewed multilateral system needs to have local governments, regional governments at the center, because this is really the level where action happens. And Karen from Costa Rica was mentioning it before, how she was reminding how in the pandemic that seems so far away, it was the cities, the local governments, the one that were responding to the immediate needs of communities. And I think that this is the mindset and the idea that we need to remember when we talk about the renewal of the multilateral system. And my second point here in this closing is that we have been mentioning over and over today that the VLR, the VSR should not only be regarded as a product. Of course, it's an outcome of a process, but first and foremost is a process that puts forward the commitment of a government in achieving the SDGs, and also in being honest on how a concrete government is doing in achieving the agenda. So this process needs to be as much as possible participatory. And we have heard today several examples on how this participatory process can be done. There are many others that we have not been able to picture today, to bring into the conversation. But actually, there are several ways, there are several mechanisms in which stakeholders, local communities can have a say in this reporting exercise. And this is the only way in which a report can be realistic, first of all, can really reflect the interests, the needs, and the preoccupations of local communities, and align all of these with the Sustainable Development Goals. And I think that this is also the added value that both VLRs and VSRs would also bring to the VNR process. Because once again, being the level of government that is close to the people, that is closer to the people, local governments have the chance and have the means to engage with their communities and to really get this granular data and these experiences that could also inform voluntary national reviews. So once again, thank you very much for everyone that has been here with us today, to the speakers, but also to the participants that have joined the two sessions. We will continue tomorrow with two more sessions and many more experiences and reflections on how the voluntary local reviews can advance different processes and support sustainability from different fronts and angles. Thank you very much also to UCLG, to UNDESA for collaborating with UN Habitat on these days. And I wish you all a great evening, afternoon, or morning. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Evelina.
Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you.